Hello and welcome to my cake kitchen. My name is Gladys, and over here I make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate cake decorating easily. I also create baking tutorials live where we undertake a bake, hoping for the best result out of it. Through the process, we talk about ingredients listing, the intention behind it, and I make an effort to hand you information about the techniques I use, the reasons why I use them, the best tips and hacks to help you get the best out of the bake so that you feel confident enough to undertake your own baking at home. So if it's your first time you see me here, hello there and welcome. I hope today you find some value in today's video, even though today's video is just a simple cake we're making. We're going to be baking red velvet cakes and some vanilla cake. Now, these are recipes that I developed myself. I have recreated and adapted them on this channel a few number of times, some of which are still on the live or in edited long form content. I will leave links in the description box later when this live is done. So when it comes to information about the recipe techniques, I have passed enough ton of information about it. So there isn't going to be anything new about it. However, the simple thing that I have identified as unique in this process is because this cake we're going to be baking is going to be filling 3 5-inch tins. This is going to be converted into a very tall double barrel cake, extremely 11, I think it's going to be about 11 inches tall, which is going to be a bridal cake. So perhaps the theme or some tips that you might probably get out of this bake today is what to do about converting recipes into deeper bakes, your best tips for great result, and how to bake your cakes in very tall tins. There are different types of tins to use, and the video is going to be probably a little bit fast paced. That is because I'm very tight for time, but I haven't been here all week, and the lives are such a happy place for me. I have a very supportive and something I left, bear with me. I'm finding my spatula. Where did I leave that? My head hurts. Okay, right, spatula, where are you? I don't. Ah, I try to organize these lives so coherently, and for some reason I can't find my spatula. Bear with me. Oh gosh, this is annoying. So, am I going to be baking without the spatula? That is really annoying. Where is the? Gosh, see, I don't have my steady spatula. I can't find. The spatula I have here is broken and nothing is perfect. So if you are having a tough day with nothing working out for you, you are not alone. But I almost feel like I'm going to have a hard time stirring my butter because this is going to be so much butter. I'm going to have some difficulty using this spatula. So perhaps bear with me if you're in the chat just so that I can find my spatula and I'll come back and talk to you. But this is really annoying me. Let's have a look. Okay, see what I'm gonna do. I'm probably going to. Okay. Right. So the bad news is I can't find the spatula that I really prefer, and it's not even a regular spatula for butter. That was a spatula that came with my. Is it the? It's not even this Kenwood. It came with my Kenwood KMX 330. One of those old Kenwood, and it's you would have seen me use it on this channel. It's a gray hard straight spatula that is very sturdy. I love it. And if you've seen any of my videos, I did a comprehensive review about mixers, my K mix. I haven't done one for this mixer over here, but I'm not keen on using spatulas that come with mixers. They are very flimsy. I don't know if somebody knows better to inform me, but they are so flimsy. The first couple of months of the new mixer, I had to shave off bits of the plastic because if you're scraping into the bowl, it kind of bends over and doesn't do anything. So I don't like them very much. Small problems, first world issues, if I'm allowed to say so myself. But I say that to say spatulas have got to improve quite significantly. I don't know what these manufacturers are doing over there with spatula that doesn't work. But anyway, I have found something that will work. I don't like it very much, but if I were to go and look for the spatula that I most prefer, we might be here forever. So that is just an awkward start to the live. I'm also going to preheat my oven over here, and then we will get to the bake. So I've just put the sugar in, but where I stopped before the spatula drama came over was that I was saying over here we are such a supportive bunch. I have a group of you who enjoy the content. We catch up, we talk about what we are up to, and we keep chatting in the community post. So it's great. And because I have had such a long week, I don't feel great anyway. I've had such a long week. It has been a little bit so I thought I will come over. Hi, Willie. Hi there, Willie. How are you? Was it I have a thing about not being able to pronounce names. So is it Nengi? Nengi Willie. Okay, let me I don't know. The internet has kind of made the name Willie feel funny, isn't it? Because there was a book somebody wrote and they called dear brother Big Willie. If you know what I'm talking, what book, if you get the clue to the book I'm talking about, leave it in the description box. The reason why I'm not talking so much about what I'm doing here is because this recipe has been done a ton and one, and there's information on the channel here for you. So yes, Nengi. Okay. Oh, hi Nengi Willie. Thank you. So do you prefer Nengi or you prefer Willie? Big Willie. We should go and ask Harry. That is just by the way. So I was just saying, we have such a supportive group here, and we all have fun. We talk to each other and we catch up and we do so many things. So I thought, even though I have a very long week, and I tell you how long my week is, as I speak to you, I have about 250 cupcakes to start, personalized decorates to be done by midday, 12 o'clock Saturday. So it's 2 p.m. Thursday and I haven't even touched. I haven't started the bake yet. The only thing I've done is shop for ingredients. And if you check my community post, you'll see there's a photo that I posted yesterday about how busy my kitchen is going to be. That is about the closest I have come to undertaking these 200 cupcakes. So Chantilly P, hi darling. How are you? It's a pleasure to have you there. I'll get to you in the chat in a moment. So I say all of that to say there's 200 cupcakes sitting there waiting for me, and I have to go and empty a very serious event. MC as in an event host, right? Do you recognize I can talk for England? Yes, I get paid to talk. But no, this is not one of those. This is one for an illustrious event that I am so looking forward to. But I haven't even prepped my MC in my host notes, the MC notes. I haven't done anything, and it requires prep. And more importantly, I don't even know what I'm wearing for the event. So these are all girl problems, but I'm a baker and I still have a life outside of baking. So I just thought I'll come on the chat live here. Let's catch up, bake something, and interact, so you all get to see how to get that, and then I'll hand you some tips about it. This is going to be so informal because if you have been on these lives, you'll find that it is very information based and tax set. I ensure that I talk you through the process, but today is not going to be one of those. Today is the chit chat. I'll pass you some tips on how you can get tall bakes from tins to what I do to get the best out of it. But there's more information already on this channel about this particular recipes over here. So there wouldn't be anything extremely new. So Nengi, yes, Nengi is saying, oh, you're welcome. You're so welcome. It's a pleasure to have you, Nengi. Chantilly, how are you? I haven't seen you a lot lately. How have you been and how are you keeping? You would notice that I didn't measure my vanilla. Over here, we don't measure the vanilla. We make sure that the vanilla, we put it enough till our heart is merry. but the butter or margarine has to be at room temperature. The speed I am running this at is 3.5, which is medium high speed, 3.54, and we're going to be creaming this for up to about 4 to 5 minutes in there. So if you're just joining the stream, hello there and welcome. I'm just going to get my apron. I don't know, I'm a baker and I feel a little bit naked without my apron. So there we have. I am happy to have it. I was looking for it and I couldn't find it. So Nengi, where are you chatting to us from? You're new to the chat stream, right? There are a few people who are like regulars. Chantilly P is one of those. There is a few different people. I don't think they are here yet. And that is because I don't pre-inform, because I'm a little bit, when I'm busy, I'm slightly disorganized. So I don't want to overpromise and under-deliver. So I don't suppose anybody even knows I'm here. But it's always a pleasure when I show up on the live and find out that you guys are here to engage and you are almost always giving. And yeah, Nengi, you are from the UK. Okay, I'm here. Oh, you're a YouTuber. Oh, hi, honey. Tell us a bit about what you do. What content do you make? Is it lifestyle? Is it food? Are you a baker? I'm just curious to know and excited to hear all about. And what's your journey about YouTube? How do you find it? Are you new to it? I'm just excited. And thank you for sharing that. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be of support. I will check you out. I'm a little bit awkward and a bit busy sometimes, but no, I will make time to check you out. So tell us a bit about your journey over here onto YouTube. So whilst this is creaming, I'm just going to scrape the sides in a little bit. Now I should say that because I'm baking 2 cakes and I don't want the stream to be a bit jumpy, when I finish this bake, I'm probably going to swap the mixer for the larger mixer over here so that we can undertake the second bake. It eliminates the possibility of wanting to wash up and do all of that whilst you sit here and wait for me. Another thing also, this stream, we are not going to wait to see the results. The reason being, most of the time when we bake, I ensure that we stay behind and we get to see the results of our bake. Because this is not a new recipe, we'll scrap that. But like I said, I have created this recipe myself and I optimized it for taller bakes. But I'll still be handing you all the tips you need to undertake a bake like this so that you can get the best result from using the tin. So let's see what we are doing in the chat. Oh, okay, Nengi. Okay, I will check you out. Nengi is a fellow YouTuber and she shares her life as a mom in the diaspora. She talks about fashion, food and all that shit. So it's basically all about Nengi as a mom, as an immigrant over here. Okay, that's exciting. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, how long have you been on YouTube, Nengi? And if you're new here, hello there. If you're just joining us in the stream here, my name is Gladys. I'm a baker and cake artist. And today I'm just baking a regular cake that is a red velvet cake that is going to be turned into a bridal cake for one of my most loyal customers. So I figured I might as well bring you along the journey and hand you some tips about how to bake your cake into tall tins. That said, there's a lot of cakes happening in my house today, so bear with me. We have the margarine and sugar. I was using caster sugar with vanilla. So with that done, we've creamed the mixture up a little bit. The creaming method, if you're new to baking, is just a simple one of the means to create air pockets or to create from the base of your batter making so that it will help build structure in your cakes, amongst all other things. That is including other ingredients, and also putting the when you go to bake the cake. So I prefer the creamy method, and that is more so for convenience and the type of cake I am optimizing for. There are different cakes and different techniques that can be employed for the results that one looks out for. So say if you're looking for a super light, spongy textured cake that doesn't really hold structure very well, but it's so light, can hold flavor very well, perhaps you want to settle for a genuine sponge. My cake layers are optimized for building and structuring them in a way where they can withhold height and stay standing for long periods of time. This includes tall double barrel tiered tall double barrel single tiered cakes, or tiered cakes that go from 2 to 4 to 5 tiers tall. As a result, to be able to build a cake like that, you want to make sure that each layer of cake is structured to be able to withstand the towering heights of other cakes being put over it. So as a result of that, a genuine sponge and sponge technique for whipping the egg whites and ensuring that the egg whites will help leave rise in the cake will not help me in my goal of creating a cake that is not super dense but isn't too light either, which is why I employ the creamy method. But whilst I enjoy using the creamy method, I still haven't forgotten that it has a tendency to yield a denser cake compared to the sponge cake option where you whip the eggs independently. But what I also do to ensure that my cake texture is optimized better, not just so that it has structure, but it's not too dense and heavy, is I employ ingredients that will help support that intention for me. As a result, for instance, I'm using margarine instead of butter. Now, I do recognize that the use of margarine means that one compromises so much on flavor, because butter comes with a depth of flavor that cannot be replicated when you swap that for, say, oil or margarine. But that also means I can mitigate the issue of flavor here by increasing the amount of, say, vanilla that will go in the cake. Now, that is not to say that makes up for butter. The flavor of butter in a cake and its use in a cake is completely different from when you use variations and derivatives of that. But either way, it is that because I'm optimizing for a certain goal, my intentions, choices, and actions that I undertake is to support that goal. Now we have some oil here. Now, I don't particularly employ oil for oil-based cakes alone. Oil has properties that will enhance like a light texture of a cake. So I have a little bit of oil that I'm going to introduce here. And what is interesting about this particular red velvet cake recipe is that because I developed it myself, it is so adaptable. You can swap different ingredients and still not compromise on the best results that you can get out of this cake. For instance, you can swap, say, if you wanted a stronger flavor and depth to your red velvet cake, you can employ brown sugar. But brown sugar has a very dense texture and a very strong flavoring. So if you employ parts of brown sugar here, you're going to get a more dense and tight looking coarse crumb, but it has a depth of flavor that is like none other. So I try to recreate that by swapping parts of the sugar, caster sugar with brown sugar, and I think that is on the channel somewhere. You can also give up oil altogether and replace the quantity of oil with margarine or butter altogether. That is the adaptability of this recipe. The good thing about any baker understanding their own recipe is that they are able to employ different ways to achieve varying results without compromising on the crumb integrity and quality of taste of the cake. And that is the thing about this red velvet cake. So the variations that I mentioned here will all be linked in the description box. So you want to do well to check that out. Thank you, Nengi. Nengi said she started YouTube in January and she's loving the stream so far. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm always astounded about how many people check into the stream. At the moment, I can see about 25 of you, and I'm just wondering, where have you all come from? Hiya. It's a pleasure to have you, and my heart is always, always grateful about your presence being here, because I'm quite aware that you could be doing one of many things with your time, especially at 2:15 on a Thursday. You could be at work, you could be on your break, you could be doing something, and yet you choose to spend some time here with me on this live. Many of you I know may not be bakers, so it is really, really a pleasure to have you. And if you're in there and you want to be a silent watcher, we appreciate you. But if you're watching this on playback, you may want to leave a comment in the comment section. But if you don't mind and you want to interact, just leave us a hello, a hi, a wave, and let us know where you are joining us from. I have the privilege of interacting with people from many cultures and different locations. I have had people in India. I know that variation in time difference can be very difficult, but it's really, really a pleasure to have you in the stream. Nangi. So starting YouTube, Nengi started her YouTube in January. What has the experience been, and fancy sharing some lessons about your YouTube journey? That is good to know. Thanks for sharing. I'm pleased your YouTube journey is quite positive so far, and you've met a few number of good people. I was just mixing the eggs slightly to see, to ensure that it is mixed in before I add it to the mixture over here. The quantities of all these ingredients I will leave in the description box. I should say, whilst the cribbing method is convenient for me for making cakes, it also comes with some downsides that if you don't understand the process, your timing, and the speed to use for mixing your ingredients, it can also result in tunneling in your cakes. And tunneling is when you bake and there's a large air pockets that creates a tunnel in the middle of your cake. So your cake has like a creator in the middle. And sometimes you don't see it when the cake is baking. It is only when you finish baking you cut into the cake and then you see that. And then you're like, oh my goodness, what is this? And sometimes it may have a texture as though the middle of the cake is not cooked. I have had that a few times in the past, not anymore. But you know what? Baking is a science, and the science of it can be unpredictable, especially if you're no scientist. Many of us bakers who undertake baking bake because we do it a lot and we observe and we notice and take notes of visual cues and the processes that we undertake over time. We kind of gain an understanding by looking, but we are unable to actually explain the science of what we are really looking at. So that is quite an interesting thing that as a baker. But obviously, as somebody who creates baking-based content, it has led to having to actively study my craft and also the subject so that I can be able to deliver some useful information to help you here. Now, I should say not all recipes are optimized for baking tall. There are a few things you have to consider when you want to bake a tall cake. That key of which is the recipe itself. Because if the recipe is not optimized for baking tall, just doubling or increasing the quantity of the ingredients itself isn't going to exactly create a tall cake. Sometimes that could lead to more problems with your cake. So you have to have some understanding of the recipe and whether the recipe is made for adapting to become a tall cake. But if you're baking tall cakes, you want to make sure that the heat in the oven is even. You have a consistent amount of heat that circulates very well in your oven. Because if your oven is the heat is very static, as in it's coming from, say, the bottom parts of the oven. I know different ovens work differently, and oven settings vary from model to brand and all sorts. The subject of ovens in baking is really, really fascinating. And I haven't come across a video where a baker is talking technically about the use of specific ovens. And I know that is because the subject is very, very subject centered. Because if you don't understand the technicalities of using an oven, I think for a long time I just knew that I had to turn my oven knob to a certain sign, and I know that the heat is radiating from the top of the oven and the bottom, and then there's a convection fan that sends the heat around the oven. But it took me a long time to even understand the other signs on the icons on the oven and what they are for. So I say that to say, if you're having problems with your oven, you're not the only one. I could bake a cake, I could make a 3-tier gravity defying cake and even build you a minion cake, but I know nothing about ovens, okay? Does that make you feel a little better about your lack of knowledge about things? But talking about that, I say that to say, having an understanding of your oven and making sure that your oven is optimized for a consistent heat pattern, it's going to be helpful. Because when you're baking deep, you need all the heat you can without cooking your cake vigorously, because it takes time for the cake to rise. Because when you have a shallow tin, which is, say, your 2 to 3 inch tin, it's flat and it's more exposed in the oven, so you get heat going everywhere in the oven whilst the tin is in there. You can get direct heat over the tin whilst also covering all aspects of the tin in the oven. But when you have a tall small 5-inch like this, you want to make sure that at least you're getting a consistent amount of heat that warms the tin itself, so that your bake is cooked properly. Because when you're cooking the cake in the oven, it cooks from the outside in. So the challenge of baking tall is that you don't want a situation where you are overcooking the outside, because you will have to take a little longer as compared to shallow things. I think when I tried baking shallow, a very long time, shallow baking can take up to about 35 to 40 minutes, whereas tall baking can take up to an hour and 15 minutes, which is about more than 25 minutes of time difference between the shallow and a tall thing. So I say that to say, if you're baking tall, because they are baking for longer, you don't want a situation where you are vigorously cooking your cake on the outside whilst the inside is not cooked. Or your outside ends up getting burnt when you have cakes on in the inside that still looks very soft and that looks very soft and wet. I have had occasions here that I have demonstrated right here where I have demonstrated cakes right here where I've taken the cake out and the outside is, I'm just mixing that in, where the inside is a bit wet, and what we've done is I've just thrown in a foil on the top and then put the cake back in, and then it's evened out the wet problems and the cake is baked out all right. I show all of that on the channel, so you want to check previous live sessions, because over here we are quite loud and proud about our mistakes, and that is not because we're trying to show off. That is simply because baking is incredibly difficult. I don't think bakers are loud and open about how difficult the number of times that baking fails happen. Like if you see me make a very beautiful cake, I'm here to assure you that that has come on the back of many failures. There was a time where I baked a cake, I baked some cupcakes, and a very small error that I didn't notice quickly led to 70 cupcakes, 3 batches thrown in the bin, you know. So those things do happen, but you learn along the way and you take your lessons with you, and for every mistake there is a ton of lessons to take from it. So if you're having some challenges in any aspect of whatever you're doing, from everyday work life to your passion or other thing, don't give up. You just want to dust yourself up quickly and just keep it moving, but take the lessons with you. So at this point of the bake, I have just added some flour here. You would see the flour has cocoa powder in it, so it looks like a chocolate cake. It's not a chocolate cake at all. It's going to be a red velvet cake. But the key thing about the key ingredients in red velvet is that there is a pinch, there is a touch of chocolate that gives you a note of chocolate that reacts with buttermilk and wine vinegar, white wine vinegar. That gives you the tangy after taste of a a good red velvet has a more complex taste compared to your chocolate cake, but it's not chocolate cake that has color in it as many people will have you believe. I'm adding the flour at a very slow speed so that I don't over beat the I don't over mix the gluten over here. So I've just, this mixer has a fold function, which is the slowest on the speed. So I am just doing that. It is very low. And then I am going to add some food coloring into it. And the flour over here has a touch of salt. Add a pinch of salt to your bakes. It will enhance the taste for you. Nengi, are you all right there, my darling? Oh, Nengi didn't know that she was here to learn something. She would have picked herself a notepad. Nengi, it's not too late. If you check back on the other live sessions, we have so many videos where you can still pick up some notes over there. So don't you worry at all. I have some buttermilk. And by the way, I was looking at buttermilk, and buttermilk is not exactly what we think it is, as in the butter that milk that has vinegar. That's what we want to call it. But actually buttermilk is made from adding something to milk, and a more closer substitute to buttermilk will be kefir or some other variations. I was looking up at it and I was quite surprised because somebody asked me about substituting buttermilk because they couldn't get the brand of buttermilk that they see other bakers use. And unknowingly, when we were talking about it, I made recommendations for them. I didn't recommend that they went and made their own homemade buttermilk, but then they went and created their own homemade buttermilk by doing an internet search. And what happened is that they ended up with more watery buttermilk, which is the liquid after when you pour vinegar in milk. And turns out, even though that is erroneously called buttermilk, that is not what buttermilk actually is in its form. So can you see the spatula that is coming off? Maybe one day I'll have to develop a proper spatula for bakers because I get really frustrated with spatulas that come off. I get frustrated with spatulas that do not have the head set right. If the head is heavy, I don't get a clean scrape. I get really particular about that. I know you can't relate if you're not a baker, but when you're a baker and you're very particular about certain outcomes, like your tools, can you see what just happened here? I'm going to have like a whole spatula head in my bake. Can you imagine? But over here, if you don't know what's happening with me and my spatula, when I first came on the live, I hadn't sorted out the spatula that I really wanted, and I don't know where it is. And if I try to look for it, we won't leave this channel, we won't leave the live. So I decided to bring my flimsy spatula to work with me. So this is about bringing your inefficient, awkward boyfriend who knows nothing about your job but wants to help. This is what you get from it. And that's just by the way. So at this point, I am having a whole row with the spatula. I know. Only a baker. Do you understand the row? Ah, what do we call the spatula? Should we give the spatula a name? That said, I'm gonna add the rest of the flour, and then we'll get the Nengi has thought, okay, at this point, Nengi just needs some. Oh God, okay, right. We have sorted that. Right, we'll let that mix, and then I am going to just wash my hands quickly. Right, so our red velvet cake batter is done. Oh God, oh, all right. Now, bear with me. Just hang in there for me if you're in the chat. I'm just picking up something. Right, if you thank you for your patience over there. If you're wondering what just happened, full disclosure, sometimes because these lives are very sporadic for me, I don't plan ahead. So I just thought, how do I get a thumbnail, a good thumbnail? So then I had to go and source out my phone to take a photo of the red velvet, which is going to be used as a thumbnail. So that was why I dipped out of the chat. A little piece of information there for you, not that you asked for it. And I'm not trying to soil my hands, but I don't have a problem using my hands either, because I find that on the internet there are a lot of food teachers and hygiene freaks who will tell you what to do and not to do, right? Nothing beats a pair of good washed hands, especially when handling food. This illusion of gloves all the time isn't it? Look, I used to work somewhere where we look, I've said that time and again, and I think I created a short on it, that I used to work somewhere. I don't think I want to name the place because they're big corporate brands, and it's not so much that I'm scared of the suit. It's just that there are some good people I know there that work there, and sometimes it's when you're telling a story, you just want to be careful about the people that may inadvertently be hurt. But otherwise, I used to work somewhere. It's a well-known food brand, and the food hygiene habits. No glove will save you from that mess, my dear. So nothing beats a pair of cleanly washed hands, like someone who is aware of what, like, keeping up with hygiene practices mean But this illusion of let's wash our hands and let's wear gloves, my dear, stop, okay? But that is just by the way. Oh, yeah, Nengi is doing the school run. Darling, come back some other time, okay? Don't worry. We will always be here, okay? So have a good one and take care. And yes, enjoy the school run and the traffic sometimes. That is if you have traffic. All right? So our red velvet cake is done. And I don't have a good spatula. It's annoying me, but ignore me. Okay. Okay. I'm trying not to lose the spatula head, which will cause me to wash my hands again. Right. So next thing, I'm gonna wipe the top here, and we're going to get our cake batter. Now we have our cake batter all done here, and it's going to be split between 3 5-inch tins, right? The 5-inch tins are, they bake 4-inch deep, but I've lined each one of the tin to also that we have a lip, because I do feel this tins really deep. And because I am aiming for the cake to end up being a tall cake, it's important that these cakes bake tall. So the lip also helps to guarantee the rise of the cake in the tin without like an overfill or an overflow. Because when you fill your tins, you want to make sure that you leave room for the cakes to rise. So say if you're baking a 4-inch deep, just on the tin alone, you want to make sure that you fill the cakes about 3 or 2.8 inches deep, leaving room for rise of the cake. Because if you don't do that, you are going to just risk the cake overfilling. But one good thing also, the rise of the cake is supported by the technique you use or employ to make the cake itself, and also the addition of rising agent amongst other things, right? So this cake, for instance, I never make a red velvet cake without that splattering on me. The red velvet cake, for instance, here would require baking soda. That is if I'm using plain or all-purpose flour, except I don't use the plain or all-purpose flour. I skip to using self-raising flour in the UK that comes with the rising agent already. So at the point of production, rising agent is already added to the cake. So Vivian, oh yes, Vivian, hi. I think Vivian, I was interacting with you earlier today on the channel page under my ganache video. Is it the baking, the decorating video, right? Is that you, Viv? How are you, my dear? Yes. Vivian is in the chat, and Vivian is asking if it's just red velvet cake I am making. Yes, Vivian, it's red velvet cake I am making. Yeah, look at what's happening here. I'm making a red velvet cake with a wonky spatula, and it's been a whole thing. Yeah, it's a red velvet cake, but Viv, I have made this cake time and again. The recipe is up on the channel in long form, in shorts, in what do you call it, in live chats. So if you want to know more about it, just check that later. But if you have any questions about red velvet you want me to answer right now, drop them in the chat and I will answer it when I put this in the oven. And then we will get to bake some more. Ignore the clanging. That is just me. If you have questions for me, Viv, I'm happy to answer them. Do you like red velvet cake? Now, one thing I like to do when I'm baking my cakes tall like this is, I mentioned earlier on about having even heat and heat radiated around your cake. So first of all, I'm stamping this to rid of air bubbles and to even out the surface of the cake, because when you put the butter in it, it kind of comes off a bit unsettled. So I'm just flattening the surface of it, and then the stamping rids of any air bubbles that may be sitting in the batter, which is why I am stamping. But I try not to do this late in the night, because then my neighbors will not be too happy with me. With that said, I was talking about what I do to ensure an even and consistent bake. One key thing, I put water in my oven. I'll show you how I do that. Right, this is a saucepan of water. I'm not going to put the saucepan in, but I have a tray, a baking tray underneath the oven, and I'm just going to pour this water in the tray. You can hear the simmering of that, right? So what the water does is, I'm just going to put the butter in, and I'll talk to you about the water and what it does. Right, so just so we can get a few facts about the water in there. The cake is baking at 180 degrees C, and this is going to be at the lowest time frame of about 55 minutes to 1 hour 15 minutes. But I found that it does really take an hour 15 minutes. So essentially we can say this bake is going to take an hour 15 minutes, and it's 240. So throw in an hour and that will be 340. And so we have 355. That's when our bake will be done. With that said, the thing to note here with the water in the oven is that the water serves as a cooling mechanism of sorts, because my oven is a convection oven which has a fan at the back of the oven. So the fan tends to radiate the heat around, and the setting is for the heat to go both up and down and around. So I have even heat going around the oven. But the water in the oven means that because this is a deeper tin, I don't want it to cook vigorously, right? Because then you have 3 tins to manage, and the positioning of the tins in the oven will receive different results in the baking process. So because I want to be able to control the outcome of all 3 tins, so that I don't risk having, say, 2 tins bake all right and then one is a bit sloppy, one thing I find is that I have to ensure that the heat is consistent, but the heat is also well managed. And the water just serves as a cooling mechanism in that when the water is in there, it tends to form vapor. So the water is not boiling, it is just warm, slowly warming up. And as it warms up, the vapor rises, and the vapor cools down the warm heat that is radiating in the oven, and by so doing it serves as a cooling mechanism for the heat in the oven without cooling it too low for you to end up with, say, a bake that is underdone, right? So it cools it enough to keep things rather steady, and the steadiness of the heat means that the vapor also ensures that your bake is more tender, because you're not having dry heat over the cooking of your cake. So that's a little tip to know, but it also means that you have to have an understanding of your oven setting, the amount of heat, because you don't want to put in water and cool your oven too low to end up with an underdone bake. So it's a good tip to have, but have some understanding of your oven setting and how that process will work for you. And that's a little tip to note. So Vivian has some questions. Let's see what Vivian is saying in the chat. Okay, yeah. Vivian said she will be checking for the other videos to find out some more information about the butter. So the next bake. So this is sort of a baking marathon of some sort, just in case. I think when I came on, I said I had a vanilla cake to bake and a red velvet cake to bake. Unfortunately, I don't like using this oven, I don't like using this mixer on the live, and the simple reason is it kind of doesn't give you a feel of what is going on in the oven. But I've also come to accept that some of you in the chat are not here for the bake itself, but it's more for the connection and the chit chat. I am just looking to kind of move on very quickly from these bakes. So I hope the tips about the red velvet are of some use to you. And now we are moving on to baking a vanilla sponge. The spatula problem still persists. Hi there, Sania. Sania, hi there, hi there, hi there. Thank you. What a nice compliment you are paying me. I appreciate it. Let me get a spatula and I'll be back there talking to you. Where my spatula at? My spatula problems are still persistent. Right. So my spatula problems persist, but yeah, we move, okay? The funny thing is that I think by the time I just finished this, you'll find that the spatula that I was looking for was all the while in front of me, which is the most annoying thing. And oh, by the way, the use of this mixer also means I can hide behind it. Can you see me? That is just by the way, right? So we have the sugar in it. I am employing the creaming method for this bake right here. So yet again, we are going to be creaming the sugar. This is caster sugar I am using here, and some vanilla here. Right, so there you go. And yeah, so I'm going to cream this at this will be creaming at 3.5 to 4, but it's a lot more louder and intense compared to the K-mix. I find the difference in the, if I had to buy a mixer all over again, I think just to kind of nerd out a bit on mixers. I know as a baker, this is my workhorse, and many bakers want to know about the mixers to use. If you can invest in a mixer, I think the more advanced one, like your Kenwood titanium and all of that, there's a use for those and a place for them, right? But if you're starting out and you want to pick up a mixer, you want to just settle for efficiency. Don't be caught out on the technical details of, you know, it's got a fancy light here and it does this. No, just ensure that whatever you are going to invest in, it is going to support a consistent and effective use in the long term for you. Because imagine, I in 7 days a week, there is about 4 to 5 days that this mixer is running, and you're looking at least an hour each run time, and we're talking from buttercream to, and buttercream, I use Swiss meringue buttercream, so I don't make American buttercream. So it means the mixers are my workhorses. And at the time of buying, this is the Kenwood XL. It is the 1200 watts. I haven't done a comprehensive video on this one because this mixer has been going for the last 5 years now. I picked it up sometime 2019, I believe. So that's been 5 years and I haven't had a single problem with that, touch wood. Anyway, but I bought it also on a discount sale in Debenhams when they had an Easter sale, and I picked it up. I think, if I remember right, like it was about £350 and it had been reduced. I can't remember. I think I'll find a receipt. I say that to say, knowing what I know now, yeah, Vivian, you're asking, yes, this is a live, it's going to be on the channel. Perhaps some of it is going to be trimmed, but not the core moment of it. So just to answer your question, yes. Sania, thank you for the compliment. And Viv, yes, this video is going to be on the channel, so you can go and come back and catch up on it. So if you don't think you're going to be able to stay on the channel and watch the entire video, that's okay. You can come back and watch it later, Vivian. So yes, if you want to pick up a mixer, you want to make sure that it's efficient. And I picked this up on a sale. At the time, I was focused. At the time, 5 years ago, I should say, I was naive, I was ill-informed, and all I was looking for was volume. Because at the time, I had a KMX330 that was a volume of, I think, 4 liters, if I remember, 4.6 liters, right? And that couldn't hold enough butter in terms of quantity for me. So I thought a bowl that is deeper was okay. I was very insecure about the use of a glass mixing bowl, because all the reviews that I was looking at were saying the glass will break and you want to be careful for using all of that. So I ended up picking this one because I think it's a 6.2 liter bowl. But for a 6.2 liter bowl, you will never be able to fill the bowl up to its maximum capacity because of the way the mixer has to be used. Because the 6.2 means when you fill the bowl up, but we can never fill the bowl up because we need it to cream or use the attachment. So at best, you're looking at a 5 liter bowl, if you like, a 5 liter quantity. So because I was sold naively on the 6.2, is it 6.2, 6.8? It's something 6 point something. I'll leave the exact details in the description box when I come to the end of this video. So I say that to say I picked it up ill-informed about quantity, and now I know differently. Obviously, at the time I wasn't a content creator, and as my journey evolved and I transitioned into other aspects and diversified my skill, I thought I needed equipment that would support that. So the the K-Mix that I have was purposely to create content with, and that was because at the time, or even now, it was because I didn't have angles of shots where I felt like you, the viewer, could be in on what we're doing. So I thought a glass bowl would be transparent enough for you to have a view of what was mixing in the bowl. So as a result, it has served me, and I have found that my favorite and preferred mixer to use, if you like, which doesn't negate the use of this one, which is actually a workhorse. The motor is smooth, a little louder, but not as loud compared to the use of the other one. So I say that to say, if I would recommend any mixer, it would definitely be the K-Mix, Kenwood K-Mix, really. That's a bit of information for if you are looking for a mixer. But you know what I'm looking for? My spatula again. I kind of feel like I'm losing my head about this spatula thing. Did I leave the spatula in there? No. suppose that was a lovely bit of ASMR for you up there. I figured the mixer was a little bit too loud and I was just going to be shouting on top of you trying to engage. So I used that time to finish the washing up quickly. But if you enjoyed that ASMR, I hope it did you some good. That said, we're going to be adding our eggs into the mix over here. So I'm just going to let that cream and I'm adding the eggs slowly. And we want to let that cream together. The eggs and because you want to make sure that you get a good, a stable and mixed emulsion. Okay. The word emulsion, as in EMULSION, and emotion is like, okay, let me not confuse you, because what we're essentially creating here is butter, cake batter for baking. And a butter is an emulsion. That is the process of blending two ingredients or elements together that would normally not mix together. So you change their forms, and then there is a stabilizing ingredient or a stabilizing factor to it to hold these ingredients. So in this case, we have oils and water and fats that do not themselves mix together. So what we're doing is that we're trying to cream them together, change their form slightly, but the addition of other ingredients such as eggs also adds to stabilize the emulsion, because egg has emulsifiers in the process. So if you cream and you get to this stage and you see your batter separating, it's because the emulsion is broken and the liquids are separating from the fats. That's the gist and the small science of it. So what you want to make sure is that you cream this to the point where the emulsion is a lot more stable. This doesn't just happen in baking. It happens in homemade ingredients and sauces such as your mayonnaise or hollandaise sauce and stuff like that. So having some small understanding of the scientific processes that are at work in the process of cake making also gives you some sort, or informs you about how to troubleshoot and fix issues that may arise. So if you're a beginner baker who knows nothing about baking and you put your eggs into the creamed mixture and you find your eggs have separated or they're not mixing, you freak out. You're like, what? My batter is not working out. That's not the case. It's just because your ingredients have separated, and all you have to do is understand how to bring them back together. In this case, you want to be able to make sure that to be able to get your emulsion stable, there is the subject of room temperature. You want to make sure that the consistencies of your ingredients are at a stable temperature where you can mix them together without variation or differences in both. Because for instance, if the eggs were cold coming from the fridge, and a key visual difference between eggs that are cold and probably eggs that are warm or brought to room temperature is that the eggs that are cold are a bit hard with some tension in it. If you want to separate the eggs, for instance, you can separate them more easily because they are like a bit tight and they're viscous, if you like. Whereas if they are at room temperature, they are lighter and they mix easily. So for instance, if you were trying to separate an egg yolk from egg white, it is more difficult when it's at room temperature or the egg is warmer, because then the yolk is lighter and it breaks and it will mix into the egg white. There's a whole gist about that. But to separate your eggs easily, you want to make sure the eggs are cold so that you can pick out your yolk easily from your egg whites, which is something to note. So for instance, if the eggs are cold and they are hard to separate and they're more viscous and there's tension, then they're not going to mix easily, and the chill from the eggs is likely to affect what the butter and oils here that makes them also cold, so then they begin to separate in the creaming process. Whereas if you had room temperature eggs, and one quick way to get your eggs at a consistency that will work, for instance, is to dip them in hot water. Half of the time I store my eggs like countertop. Depending on location and country, there's a subject or there's a whole conversation about how eggs are stored. Some preach storing them in the fridge. In England, you can leave them on a countertop. But if you know anything about the English weather, we are a cold country. Like, it's always cold. Not as cold as our colleagues over there somewhere in Europe, like your Iceland, but England is cold. Our weather in a day is changing from warm to cold to rainy. It's a mess out here, okay? So if I left my eggs at even the countertop, doesn't guarantee that the consistency will support what I am trying to use it for. So I have given up on the things that I can't control. So my good friend here, a saucepan, is I take all my eggs from the crate in which they were delivered, put them in a saucepan, and pour warm water. I have gone as far as tipping hot tea kettle water over them, but that is likely to cook the eggs. And when you break it, you will get like a film of the egg white sort of looking like it's trying to cook. Don't do that. Just pour hot warm water, tap water, warm water over them, leave them to sit for 10 minutes, and then you break them and it works easily. When you also cream the, I'm using margarine here for convenience, and also margarine gives me a better texture, but I'm openly aware that by using margarine there are some slight changes that will come as a result of, say, if I used butter, because butter will guarantee better flavor, and butter will set a tighter crumb at room temperature for me. But I don't care about all of that. I just want a good textured cake, and margarine supports that effort for me. And when I cream it, I want to make sure you cream it for a certain amount of time to ensure that it increases in volume, it has changed its form and consistency, and also it will support a better batter for you. So that is all the bits about creaming. And so I'm just going to let the eggs whip so it doesn't settle, and then we'll add some flour to it. unfortunately, because the mixer is a little bit loud, I'm not able to engage properly, and I hope you understand that. So it's time to add the flour into that. This is self-raising flour that has bits or a pinch of salt in it. So I am going to leave it to cream on low, really low, and then we'll add the rest of the flour. And with the flour gone in, I'm going to add some buttermilk also, and one small ingredient that I add to my vanilla cake is a bit of vinegar. Yeah. And yeah, it's creaming. Okay, and essentially that is our vanilla batter done. Oh Christ, bear with me. All right, I did tell you I hadn't planned my thumbnail, so I am just going to take a photo of my, yeah, let's see. Yeah, so we are done over here, and let's try and get this. And in the meantime, our red velvet cake is still baking. It's going to be turned into a bridal themed cake, and the concept of it, I'm still like that. I'm still unsure. If my customer is listening, they should be worried, but no, I say that to say my customer is amazing, and when I can't derive a concept, it's only because I'm thinking about them and I want to do the best I can, the best work possible. So that can take a lot of back and forth mentally to achieve, but she will get a cake. So okay, so the spatula problem sort of fixed itself. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, this has been an ongoing problem. Spatula, spatula, spatula. My disloyal spatula. Yeah. Someone was asking why I add vinegar. Okay, vinegar is an acid, right? It reacts with the rising agent. That is, in this case, if I was using baking soda. But the self-raising flour already, hold on. The self-raising flour already has a rising agent. So vinegar and buttermilk tends to tenderize the proteins, which slows down the formation of gluten. So it makes your cake crumb a little bit tender. That is for this recipe, and that is the basics of it, right? So hopefully that brings you some understanding of what vinegar does in a bake. It also leaves you with a very a slightly complex, tangy mouthfeel to the cake, but it's unlikely you will notice if your cake is like lightly, nicely textured with a good buttercream. You will hardly notice, but it doesn't negate the use of the ingredients in the mix. So that's what vinegar does. And Vivian, I hope that answers your question. I wish I was like there's a baking channel on the platform that is fronted by a microbiologist. A few channels that I enjoy on this platform. You have Sugarology. I've made recommendations to that channel a lot on here. I love that channel. You want to check out Adam Ragusia, yeah, Adam Ragusia. He's a cook, a home cook, he calls himself, but he has some really wild and in-depth knowledge about the subject of food, the science of it, and he kind of breaks it down in a very like helpful, understanding way where you kind of understand. It's like your dad is cooking, but your dad is a mad scientist in the kitchen and he knows his stuff, sort of thing. So if you really want to understand some of these baking processes and the science around them, you can geek out on some of those channels. I will leave some of the information in the description box for you. Vivian, I hope that helps. So this quantity is baking two 6-inch tins. It's baking deep, and this cake is going to be standing at 9 inches tall. So that is something to note. I have some moderators on the channel who are not available today, but shout out to Delaney and Amanda. I haven't been a great person to be in touch with Amanda, but that's because I don't want to pressure her just in case she has life happening or going on. But yeah. Right. So these are the two 6-inch vanilla baking at 4-inch deep. So if you can tell, I have filled the tin up to the brim, but then the lip of the greaseproof paper serves as a sort of barrier within which the rice can be kept, so it stops the cake overflowing. So obviously I can't bake that yet, so I'm going to leave that on my countertop here for the time being whilst the red velvet is baking. So there is just about enough time for me to take your questions, and for if you have any questions, happy to answer them for you. But if you don't, I think we might as well call it a day, because at some point this week, I say this week, tomorrow is Friday, and I already have 250 cupcakes to sort out, between which I still have to sort 6 batches of 3 batches of Swiss meringue buttercream, 3 batches of French buttercream. That's a lot of buttercream. And I have to create toppers for each of these cakes and all sorts. I wish the angle of my camera was wide enough for me to bring you right into the kitchen for you to see exactly what I'm doing. But at the moment, that is not possible. So I can only just about bring you along where I have a streamlined process and a session to keep you informed, hand you tips, and help give you a lot of value. But hopefully you found some value in the tips that I handed to you about how to bake a tall cake, the tips that will help you achieve taller bakes. So go use that, and if you need some more help, have further questions, you can catch us up on our daily shorts where there's more baking information, or the extension of more information for you, yet we catch up, which you will find on our community page. Over there we interact about all things baking, and also the goings on about everyday life. At the moment, via the community post, I know our moderator Delaney is off to work today, and some of you like Vivian caught up with me earlier today, and a few of you who continue to interact with me on there. But for all of you who join me in the live sessions, my heart is always grateful, and I never take for granted for the fact that you actually invest your time to come here engage with me, support the channel. I think throughout today's video, I haven't asked you to like the videos you watched, and that is because I think I got too busy and I forgot. If you haven't joined the community, do consider subscribing. Join the community here because we're a positive and supportive bunch. But do um, turn on your notifications. We're here regularly, best as possible, up to about 3 times a week with live sessions, baking packed, tips packed, and baking centered videos to inform and help you enhance your baking experience. And also, like this video so that YouTube can tell other bakers that there's a video that will give them value, teach them how to bake, and all sorts. It's a no cost to you. All you have to do is just hit the like button just so that YouTube is aware and then can put these videos in front of other people who will enjoy the experience just as you have. So for today, Vivian, Nengi, and all the rest of you who have been here with me today, thank you, and I'll be back on my next live.